Hello, and welcome to the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create an empowering resource for those who wish to discover more about these topics. I pray that this podcast will not only bless you, but that it will bring growth and healing to our communities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. Today, I am joined by a very special guest. Her name is Vasavi Kumar. Vasavi Kumar is a first-generation Indian immigrant raised on Long Island, New York. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder at 19, she made it her mission to understand her mind, starting by making room to hear herself think. Through her Say It Out Loud podcast, keynote talks, and group programs, Vasavi has taught thousands of entrepreneurs, creatives, and artists how to work through any situation by saying it out loud. She holds dual master's degrees in special education from Hofstra University and social work from Columbia University. Her book, Say It Out Loud, is also published by the New World Library. Welcome, Vasavi.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that beautiful introduction. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, I'm happy to have you. And so before we dive into our topic for today, I would like to ask, what are 3 things that you can't live without and why?
Man, I love this question. So the first thing would be my dog, because my dog is truly my emotional support animal. The second thing that I would say are my meds. I need my meds. And that is something I can't live without. And that is something that it's taken me a very long time to accept and be at peace with that. But I couldn't live without my meds. I could, but it would be difficult. And and then the third thing that I can't live without is God, because I am everything that I am because of God and through his grace. So I feel very grateful to be here today and answering these questions and having this conversation with you. But those are the 3 things that I can't live without.
Yes. I love them. And I also relate to them a lot, especially the medication, yes, that was something I also had to come to terms with. And then God, of course, he's like my source, he's my everything. And then in terms of emotional support animals, I have a baby boy, Felix, he's my cat.
Oh, oh,
Yeah, and I can't live without him either. So I love
oh,
all of those.
thank you. Yeah, I mean, our fur babies really are everything. So
Yes, absolutely. So, Vasavi, I want to get into your story and especially like your mental health journey. So, can you tell me a little bit more about that journey, like when you got diagnosed, what your experience was like with bipolar disorder, and what lessons have you learned during the healing process?
yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was officially 19 years old. I'm 42 now, so I've been living with bipolar disorder officially for 23 years. And I was in college when I got diagnosed. I had a lot of manic symptoms, was very hypersexual, very little sleep, using a lots of substances, talking really fast. A lot of the things that you see with people who struggle with mania. And I'm diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1.
Mm,
So it was hard, when I got diagnosed. I remember feeling a sense of relief when I got diagnosed because I knew that my behavior was not indicative of who I was and how I was raised. It felt very out of character for me. So I felt very relieved after I got diagnosed. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned as someone who's living with bipolar disorder is to do whatever I can to be at one with myself, which is where
mm,
my relationship to God comes into play. I always want to do right by him, and I always want to do what's best for me and do it in a way that also positively impacts the people around me.
mm,
But the biggest lesson that I had to learn is also that it's okay to prioritize myself first and foremost. Because when you have bipolar disorder, you really do have to be mindful of your sleep, of your eating, of your diet, of your exercise, of what you're telling yourself, of the people that you hang out with, all of it. It's all stuff that everyone should be doing. But when you have a diagnosis like this, you're kind of forced to have to look at your life under a microscope.
mm.
So for me, it started my healing journey.
Wow. Oh, I love that. Especially like, you learning to put yourself first. And a lot of people think that self-care and putting yourself first is a selfish act, and it's like, "Oh, you don't wanna think about anybody but yourself." That's not what that is. It's
Yeah,
really recognizing what you need before you can cater to anybody else's needs, because you can't
exactly.
give from an empty cup. So I just love that, especially with
Exactly. You said it beautifully. That's right. And I think that's something that I had to learn the hard way was that it's okay if people are mad at me because I'm putting myself first. I got to put
Mhm.
myself first. And you have to when you're dealing with a mental condition.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. And so, in light of your experiences with bipolar disorder, what made you want to become a mental health advocate?
I think I've been very blessed with a lot of people who have helped me along the way. And so I went to get my master's in social work because I wanted to be that same person for other people. I started therapy when I was 12 years old. So I had the experience of being listened to and heard and held in
Mm.
a very beautiful, safe, emotional way by my therapist. And when I got older, I wanted to pay that back and help others. So I became a mental health advocate as well through the form of becoming a therapist and eventually a coach.
Wow, I love that. And especially, I love how you said you love the way that your experience with therapy has helped you develop and it made you feel seen and heard. And I love how you wanted to give that experience back to others.
Yes.
That's so heartwarming for
Good. I love that.
Yeah. So, how has your culture, because I know I mentioned in the bio earlier that you are an Indian immigrant,
Mhm.
and I know that sometimes there are different cultural views associated with mental health. And so, how has your culture played a role in your view of mental health?
Well, I'm really lucky, because my parents are immigrants. I was born and raised in this country, and they were very open to sending me to therapy at the age of 12. So I know a lot of kids in the South Asian culture where I grew up do not have that privilege. I had parents who were very open and very accepting of my diagnosis. Of course, they weren't happy about it, but they were accepting of it. They put me in therapy. But my culture has played a huge role because in our culture, we don't talk about mental health. But I was someone in my family that openly talked about it. I openly talked about my struggles with people in my community. And I think that was a little hard, especially for my mother, because she didn't want people to judge me. So she didn't really want me to say a lot of things out loud, but I did anyway. I even wrote a book called Say It Out Loud because I believe that that is truly going to be the saving grace for people to be able to say what they need to say out loud. But I would say being in the Indian culture, I have a very different experience than what I think a lot of people may have because I grew up with parents who were very accepting of me going to therapy from a young age. But overall, it has definitely shaped how I view myself and how I view myself with a mental health condition. I don't judge myself anymore for having it. And the Indian culture can be very judgy, like a lot of cultures when it comes to mental health conditions. But I think because I had the support of my parents, it was a lot easier for me to learn to accept what I was going through as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you also had that support, because having that support system is very beneficial, especially when you're dealing with a mental health condition yourself. And I
Yeah.
also resonate with the culture, like the external views of it, because I'm from a West Indian culture, and especially in the Black community in general. Like, that's a whole nother topic, but
Yeah.
we don't do the whole therapy, take medication, because it's like, oh, you're crazy, quote unquote. So,
Basically, yeah, basically.
yeah,
Exactly right. If something's wrong with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So I just love that your parents were open about it, and it also led you to have, like, more development in not only your healing journey, but also expressing that to others and helping them be able to get the help that they need to.
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly.
Well, I also want to talk about your book, Say It Out Loud. I love that title. And what is the story behind the title? And how did you come up with that concept and to put in a book?
Yeah, so I was doing an Instagram live with a colleague, and my now literary agent, she was watching this IG live. And the question that was asked of me was, do I journal? And I said, I don't journal. I say it out loud. I talk to myself out loud. And my
Wow.
literary agent at the time, she was not my agent, but she heard me say that. And she was so impressed by that She immediately reached out to me and she said, we need to create a book called Say It Out Loud. And you need to talk about and write about how you talk to yourself and teach other people how to do the same.
Hello again. Before you dive into the rest of today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support and for hitting that play button. If you want to expand on that support, here are 3 ways that you can do so. 1. Leave a review. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, or you want to share how the podcast changed your life, you can do so by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. 2. Check out our shop. The Rough Edges shop is a faith-based, women of color owned online shop where you can get a variety of products from tote bags, journals, t-shirts, crew necks, and more. 20% of the proceeds go to a mental health organization. So check it out at roughedgespodcast.com/shop. 3. Connect on social media. Rough Edges is on a variety of social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and more. If you want to connect outside of listening to the podcast episodes, you can do so on those platforms. If you have any more questions or want more information on the ways that I've just discussed, you can check out the episode description or stay to the end for more information. Now, enjoy your episode.
So that's how the topic came about. That's how the title came about, because I literally said out loud, oh, I say it out loud. That's what
Right.
I do. I'm a verbal journaler.
Wow. Oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. That's really cool. And like in terms of like the concept of saying it out loud, like how do you feel like just the act of just like saying things out loud or speaking to yourself and like positively affirming yourself, how does it help with mental health?
Oh my God, it's everything, right? Because when I'm depressed, when I'm going through a depressive phase, my mind wants to attack me. My mind does attack me. When I'm going through a very hypomanic phase, my mind attacks me. So it really is my self-talk that talks me off the ledge of doing
Yeah.
something stupid, like doing something stupid, hurtful, impulsive, compulsive. So when you talk to yourself with kindness, when you talk to yourself with patience and give yourself grace, the mental health challenge that you're facing doesn't seem as challenging when at least you're nice to yourself up here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I especially love like the just the act of saying it out loud feels like a declaration. Like you
Yes.
like it doesn't matter like what you're going through at the time, but you just declaring it. Like I'm going to have a good day today. Like everything in
Yeah.
my body and my mind is telling me otherwise, but I'm going to have a good day. I'm going to get through this day. And that gives you the motivation to do it.
And it's not just about saying it, Sarah. It's about believing it, right? Because I write about that in my book. It's not just about saying words. It's about believing what you're saying. So not just, I'm going to have a great day and then continue on to berate yourself or scold yourself in your brain. It's, I'm going to have a great day because I said so. And then actually go about it. You know what I mean? Believe it. You got to believe it. And I also talk a lot about mirror work in my book, to looking at yourself in the mirror and talking to yourself in the mirror so that you can't deny your own existence and deny
Mm.
your own reflection. So all of this can be found inside of my book, Say It Out Loud.
Yes, I love that. I mean, we kind of touched on some of the key takeaways, but if you could choose just like one big key takeaway from your book that people can hold on to, what would that be?
Stop being an asshole to yourself. Period. Stop being an asshole to yourself. Like, you wouldn't dare talk to someone that you love the way that you talk to yourself. You would not even, it wouldn't even cross your mind with someone that you genuinely love and care for. So by you being an asshole to yourself, you're telling me that you don't love yourself. Because if you
Mm,
did, you wouldn't talk to yourself in that way. So
right.
stop being an asshole to yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
Oh,
funny.
But yeah, I agree with you for sure. Like we need to, like you said, we wouldn't talk to a close friend or a family member the way we would talk to ourselves sometimes. And
Yeah.
so where do you think that there's like a disconnect? Because I know it's like it's easier said than done. Like, of course I wouldn't talk to, someone like you or another like, friend of mine. I wouldn't say the berating things that I sometimes say to myself to you, but what is the disconnect, do you think? Like, I would say it to myself, but I wouldn't say it to someone else.
I think the disconnect is that we are disconnected from our bodies. And so
Mhm.
we are just kind of like floating heads, and we need to tap into the wisdom of our body. We need to tap into the soul of our body. We need to tap into this vessel that is our temple and talk to our bodies. I even say this in my book. Your body will speak to you, but you got to listen and you got to ask questions, but you got to listen. You have to listen to what your body is saying to you. So I think that's the disconnect, as many of us are disconnected from our own selves. And so we act very quickly and speak very quickly to ourselves in a way that isn't kind. We would never do that with somebody else that we love.
Mm, yeah, that's true. I definitely agree with that. And now, in terms of like the process of creating Say It Out Loud, what was like the most challenging aspect, and also what was the most rewarding aspect of writing Say It Out Loud?
The most challenging aspect was I had to see where I was not taking my own advice, and I wanted to make sure that everything that I said in the book that I was following myself. So it really helped me, and this is the blessing of writing a book, that it really showed me where my gaps were, and it helped me close my gaps. Like as I'm doling out advice, I'm like, I need to take this advice for myself. So it really helped me to start embodying the work that I was teaching.
Wow. Oh, I love that. And I
Yeah.
especially do appreciate you recognizing that you needed to learn how to do it yourself in order to be able to, teach it to somebody else or even put all of the essence of what you've learned into your book. And
Yeah.
I also love how introspective it is because it not only shows that, hey, okay, I have to put these things into practice, but if I'm going to be able to share it with others, I need to have done it myself.
Right. And that was, and granted, I had 2 years to write the book, so I had a lot of time to heal myself in the process, but it was hard. It was really hard writing the book, but we did it.
Yes, yes, and I'm so glad that you did because it's an amazing concept for sure.
Thank you.
And I also want to go back into just like the cultural aspects of everything. And in light of like your book, Say It Out Loud, like if you could change one or two things that the way either your culture or society as a whole views mental health, like what would those things be?
It would definitely be to have more compassion for yourself and ourselves. And I think we're so quick to judge others, but that just shows how quick you are to judge yourself. So if we could really stop judging ourselves, we would stop being so judgy with other people. We'd have more understanding with other people. We'd extend more grace with other people, have more compassion with other people. But it starts with how we treat ourselves first.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And what are some tips that you would have for somebody who is struggling to actually love themselves? Like, what would be some of your tips to get somebody to actually appreciate and love themselves and so that they could speak more kindly to themselves?
Focus on the small things. Don't try to change your entire life overnight. Focus on being hydrated. Focus on getting sleep. Focus on spending time with people who lift you up and make you feel safe. Focus on eating nourishing foods. Focus on how you speak to yourself. It's the little things that we often disregard that really are the true acts of love. Like hydration may not seem like a big deal, but it's an act of love to hydrate, right?
Yeah.
Drinking water. We all need water to survive. And it's those little things. It's like really paying attention to the ways in which you're not paying attention to yourself, and start watering those areas in your life that you're not doing, like going for a walk, going to bed on time, shutting down the Netflix, at least a few hours before you go to bed. We all know, Sarah. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like we all know when something is not good for us because all you have to do is pay attention to how you feel. If you don't
Mm,
feel good doing something, stop doing it
right.
and be kind to yourself throughout the process.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely agree. It's just like we're more of like, okay, do it in theory, but then when it comes to practice, it's like
That's the
it's
hardest part. That's the
yeah.
hardest part, but that's where the true change happens. When you actually start to embody it yourself, then you're no longer disconnected from your body.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, most definitely. I agree with that. And it's just like, even with connecting with your body, it's like we are very complex beings. We have a mind, body, soul, and I also include the spirit because, I spiritual, but like we have so many like layers to us in our essence. And it's like one thing that we neglect could impact everything else. And I don't think we often realize that most of the time.
I love that. That makes total sense. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I also wanted to talk about like what has the response been like since you released like Say It Out Loud? Like were you more surprised at the response? Like how has that been for you?
I've been really surprised that people have really accepted the book with open arms. I find that a lot of people like to tell me things because I'm the queen of saying it out loud, so people feel very comfortable telling me things. It's surprising how much people open up to me, and I feel very honored that people share their stories with me. It really means a lot to me when people who haven't spoken up or really shared personal things open up to me because they've read my book or they know that I'm very accepting of other people. It's been a great blessing to write this book and have it be out in the world.
That is so nice. I'm glad that, people are responding and are actually like seeing the benefits of like saying it out loud. And I do want to also ask, like, in terms of what you want your readers to not only hold on to, but what would you like them to share or be able to share with other people as a result of reading your book?
I would love them to pass on the message to be kind to yourself. Like, be
Mhm.
kind to yourself, speak kindly to yourself. If you could just work on that one thing, I'm going to speak kindly to myself. Just watch your entire life change. Watch it instead of beating yourself up for not going for the walk. Be understanding with yourself. Go the next day, or for
Yeah.
beating yourself up for maybe binge watching a show instead of yelling at yourself or calling yourself lazy. Be kind to yourself, be understanding, and the next day do better. We always have an opportunity every day to do better. So, the message that I would like for people to spread is to be kind to yourself and to speak kindly to yourself.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Well, Vasavi, I thank you so, so much for joining me. And before we go, I have one final question. What advice or words of encouragement do you have for someone who is struggling to manage their mental health?
Please don't feel like you have to deal with this alone. Find one person that you can talk to. And I'm just going to say the harsh reality of life. If you have no one that you can talk to yourself.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, wow. Oh, I love it. And where could people find Say It Out Loud?
Everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target. It's available everywhere.
Yes, awesome. So thank you so, so much once again, Vasavi. And for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed this episode and stay tuned for more empowering episodes on Rough Edges. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. If you want more updates on the podcast, you can follow on Instagram at rough.edges.podcast, or you can visit the official podcast website at roughedgespodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.